Fantasy Baseball Deck, everybody. This is Austin. We're going to jump literally right into it because the draft just started. I've already selected Juan Soto because he dropped all the way to the number 8 hole. And now, if you guys can join along with me here, somehow for whatever reason, Freddie Freeman's still available. And what do we want to make sure that we get one of is our first baseman. First baseman is super duper thin this season, so can't miss kind of situation we have to come away with. A really quality first baseman because they're all really concentrated at the top. So I'm going to select Freddie Freeman with my second pick, which is wild. As we, like I kind of talked about before, this fantasy baseball sheet on the right side here of your screen is essentially all of my thoughts and opinions on every player within essentially the top 300 plus. There's essentially 400 players that are ranked in sort of, I give my opinion on through the top 300. I give basically opinion on mostly every player. It gets to a point where I start to skip the players that are red because I feel like I shouldn't spend time on players that I don't necessarily, want. So I guess past that number 100 and on, is sort of just focusing on the guys in green, which I for sure thought that I had an opinion on Jordan Romano. My opinion on Jordan Romano is we like Romano, and that's pretty subjective. But for the case of going through this all at once, let's sort of jump into the importance, kind of the specific. So this league specifically, it's kind of 1 point for everything. ESPN standard head-to-head, 10 teams. I'm going to go and sort of look at how many players I need. This is one of those flex teams that are going to require a lot more volume. So this is going to be a pretty deep draft. If we look at the second base shortstop position, then there's also a first base, third base position. So we have to essentially grab 3 players per corner infielder. So 3 corner infielders and 3 middle infielders, as well as 1, 2, 3, 4, a whole 5 outfielders and a utility slot, plus it looks like 9 pitching slots that are all just general, can be starting or relief pitchers, and then 3 bench spots that are also going to be pitchers for us unless we draft someone kind of like a Bryce Harper or something at the end, knowing that we're going to just slot him to the IL and use later. But as these picks are happening, it's really important to make sure that you're on top of things. And when I say you're on top of things, I just really mean that, like, in these, this is a real draft. This is happening. This is someone else's draft that I'm drafting for them because she essentially couldn't show up. And in good faith, I'm going to make content out of it. This isn't cheating. I'm not offering my services to any of you guys. But a friend reached out to me and said, "Hey, can you draft for this person? We don't want her to go on auto draft. She's had a bad experience before." And what I don't want to happen is someone to give fantasy baseball a try and then have a bad experience because of things that she or he can't control, kind of thing. So what can we control in these in-between periods? I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people before I select again. So I'm going to essentially start scrolling through and making sure that I'm highlighting all these players that I love. See, at number 20, at number 26, Dylan Cease is available. 28, Rafael Devers is available. Ronald Acuna is gone. That's fine. Spencer Strider at 29. Going through during this time period and really just making sure to highlight all of the people that are really, really important. And I'm kind of haphazardly like skip over queuing some of the people in the very top 150 because all players are really, really good at this time in the draft. So I sort of usually skip to 15 and below. Now, at the same time, you want to make sure that if you have a fantasy draft coming up in the next couple of days, opening days on Thursday, better be quick. But in that 1 hour period before you essentially start to begin your draft, you will see what pick you're able to, what pick you are. So I was the number 8 pick for this person. And I'm coming up and I'm going to make sure that I spend that hour highlighting all these people beforehand so that if you, in order, make sure you're going in order to make sure that if you're drafting on the road for whatever reason, if you're obviously don't draft and drive, D&Ds are bad, but if you're drafting on the road, one time I was drafting my fantasy football team and I made the mistake of, all of the players in the top 50 in fantasy football as well are kind of can't miss. So I'll start drafting all of the players from the 50 down. I had the very last pick in the draft out of 12 teams. I was the number 12 pick. So what happened was when it got to my pick, I lost internet connection long enough in the middle of the Virginia mountains to where my first and second pick was like George Kittle and somebody else outside of the top 150 or the top 50 picks, because I essentially lost connection, and it was a weird situation, but like this happens. So if I go to look at what we have going on here, gosh, I am a huge Dylan Cease fan. I couldn't really be happier to walk away with Dylan Cease. I was hoping that Pete Alonso would come around, but you can see already, if we go to first baseman, what I talked about before, why first baseman is so important. Look at the first basemen that are available. When I talk about shallow drafts, it's kind of shallow because it is exactly shallow because all 5 of those people that are most important, meaning Freddie Freeman, Guerrero Jr., Paul Goldschmidt, Matt Olson, and the other guy are essentially the most like important. So I love Dylan Cease with everything that I have. I'm really happy to get Dylan Cease. This is the first draft ever that I've gotten him with my 3rd pick. I usually have to stretch a little further for him, but the fact I've started out with Freddie Freeman, Juan Soto, and Dylan Cease, I think that I'm setting this lady up for success, to say the least. So we've got an ace of a pitcher. We have 2 MVP candidates at first base and outfield, given there's 5 outfield slots. I got one early only because, again, Juan Soto, number 2 player overall, number 1 consensus if Ohtani doesn't exist. Falling to the 8th spot is kind of rare, actually really rare. That was bizarre. But what I'm going to do now is something goofy. If we talk about kind of the importance of getting players for their value when you have a chance. Right now, okay, I'm at the 8th spot. There's 10 teams in this league. There is an entire slew of people that are going to draft before it gets back up to me, and we're only at pick number 33. But essentially, I can't expect Austin Riley to be there when I get back. So this is a point, like if you're towards the end of the draft, if you're not kind of evenly mixed in as you go, you want to make sure that if you're at the tail end of either side of the draft, that with that second pick of yours, or the first and second, you want to make sure that you scroll down kind of fully to make sure that you really absorb who is available and kind of what's going on. Because though these players at the top are good and they're great, I think that Austin Riley has an opportunity to win an MVP and be the number 1 third baseman this year. So I'm going to stretch down to number 49 at Austin Riley and be really happy about that. And when I say that, like, I'm looking at Austin Riley to be an MVP candidate, I have him highlighted in cyan over here. These guys are essentially, players that I have to, in my head, I have to walk away with. Austin Riley was the number 2 guy in all of Major League Baseball last season in regards to total bases, and total bases is just measuring how many bases does a player earn on their own, no other stats. If you hit a double, regardless of who's on base, no one's on base. If you hit a double, you get 2 points toward your total bases. If you hit a triple, 3 points, a home run, 4 points, a single 1, and everything in between. So it really just measures how productive you are as an individual hitter. So Austin Riley was number 2 in all of baseball this past year, behind only Aaron Judge. Again, I think that he's an MVP candidate, hitting in the primetime slot in the that Atlanta roster that's absolutely loaded. I couldn't be happier to get Austin Riley with my 4th pick. This team is going to absolutely be loaded. But again, kind of we dodge the punches as they come kind of thing. You have to make sure that you're coming away with an elite first baseman. You have to come away with an elite third baseman. And really after that, we're kind of in good shape. The second base slot is really important. That's really, really shallow this year. It's bad. But my plan overall, and as always, is to sort of wait and then reach for number 158 down here. Jazz Chisholm's way underrated. So I consider second base to be very, very shallow and just kind of suck overall. But, I don't consider it as shallow because I can find an MVP candidate, number 1 possible second baseman for his position at the number 158 spot. Why I consider first base to not be very shallow is that past the first 30 picks, between Freddie Freeman, Vlad Guerrero Jr., Paul Goldschmidt, Matt Olson, and why do I miss it? The other one, between those 5 guys, like there's no opportunity for anyone to beat them. Like they're going to be the top 5 guys. And why I'm blanking on the other first baseman still. Oh, Pete Alonso. I get him almost every time. Pete Alonso being the other 5. That's going to be the hard stop 5. There's no one in this group of first basemen that are left that will come anywhere close to those primary 5 people. Therefore, it's an extremely shallow position to me, and you sort of have to address it immediately. Come by. I know that I need those corner outfield or corner infield spots are certainly the most potent guys in all of baseball. I would love to come away with Bobby Witt Jr. if he can survive 1, 2, 3, 4, 3 picks, up towards me. But we will see how that kind of comes in. There's some pretty decent players surrounding him, so there's a decent shot, but I wouldn't hold my breath. And then not obviously, but I think a lot of Christian Javier. If we go to Christian Javier stats, I think that again he's the dark horse to win the AL Cy Young Award this year. I think that he is going to absolutely kill it, and this is going to be the first year that he's really released to get as many innings as he can pitch. He's always been a starting pitcher and has been looked at as a starting pitcher, but the fact that he I got really excited because I thought that Bobby Witt's still there. That's crazy. The fact that he is going to be released to get 180 innings pitched this year is nuts, because this past season, if we look at his stats, he had around 20. He had 50 more strikeouts than innings pitched. If we can equate this to around 180 innings pitched, we can think about how that ratio even starts to stretch more and more. So, moving forward, if we look at Christian Javier coming up this next season, there's just a lot of opportunities, because giving him 180 innings pitched, he really has an opportunity to, throw 230 plus strikeouts, which is really awesome with that really low ERA, which he's always maintained. And I could not be more excited to get Bobby Witt Jr. and have that shortstop slot filled with a guy who's going to steal 30 plus bases this year. He stole 30 bases last year with the old rules. With these pitch timer new rules, boy, is he just going to absolutely kill it. So I couldn't be happier to come away with Bobby Witt Jr. He's a true 30 stolen base, 30 home run guy with that potential, that power and speed combo. And again, could not be happier to come away with them, because of, again, those new rules that those speedsters on the base paths are going to score a billion points. I truly think that across all of baseball, that stolen bases across the league is going to go up 40%. And that was hot. Anyways, those small ball teams, those players, those teams like like the Kansas City Royals, like the Tampa Bay Rays, like the Cleveland Indians, have always stolen a lot of bases before. But if you think about, you're on first base and you're looking in at the new pitch clock, and you know that the pitcher on the mound has to come to home within that time period, you can you absolutely can anticipate the fact that this player can anticipate the end of the time clock and just take off towards second base right as the times were, running out, and there's really no consequences. Surely enough, Christian Javier is there. Huge strikeout potential. Strikeouts are going to be that much more important this season. Why? Because of all of these rules with these extra base runners moving around on the base paths. You can only throw over to first base, second base, whoever you're trying to pick off so many times before they can automatically advance. There's going to be so much more contact and just base runners running around in general, that you need to make sure that you have a bunch of guys that are heavy swing and miss potential people, because you have to erase balls in play. If I have a batter at second base, for whatever reason, he stole second, whatever, and I got to get 2 outs. If I strike out the batter, the batter the ball doesn't go into play, that automatically erases any possibility from advancing to third and then maybe getting a sacrifice in. So I take Christian Javier and be really happy about said thing as my second overall pitcher. So Dylan Cease, Javier, Soto, Witt Jr., Austin Riley, Freeman. I am absolutely killing it. My actual fantasy baseball draft for one of my leagues is tomorrow. So I'm done with all of them except one, which is tomorrow, which I originally founded and play with a bunch of high school friends. So, and for sure looking forward to that one. But, as we move forward, now that this is the time period where I have all of these picks before I go again. I don't want to be wasteful with my time. I want to make sure that I'm, again, minimizing my screen so that you guys can see the same thing that I'm going through. Again, my list and kind of what I do with my strategy is, highlighting the players in green with bold and cyan. That means can't miss, almost have to walk away with that player from this draft. If it's just green with bold, I think that, given that Carlos Rodon is the last 2 seasons has been a top 10 pitcher, number 8 and then number 7 overall in, points scored per start, like really, really quality guy at the fact that he's it's number 75 overall. If we look at Michael Harris, this is a player that I think is a good deal given where they're at in the draft. If we go to yellow, no yellow players will be bolded. If you go to a yellow player or a gold, which basically means that there's a but situation, meaning that like I may or may not like the player, but they might be someone who might have some injury risk, or they're moving to a situation that doesn't make as much sense. There's going to be I think that there's some positivity with this player, but this is something that you need to understand and the kind of the risk involved in picking that player. And then red means that I don't necessarily hate the player. If it was this point in the draft and for whatever reason, let's say Kyle Tucker or Jacob DeGrom were available, I would be happy to take them at pick 60 plus. But just given at their point in the draft, I don't think it's worth it given the injury risk or given the production risk or whatever. Like Jacob DeGrom is going to get between 60 and 120 innings really at max per season, because that's generally what he does every year. When he's available, he's the best thing going. But like, you need to be able to have sustainable guys, especially at the top of your rotation. Like if I'm picking between a Jacob DeGrom and even a Shane Bieber, I know that Shane Bieber is going to throw 190 innings. Really no questions asked. He's just kind of a marathon guy. He's available. Same thing with Trey Turner. I know the different positions, but Trey Turner every single year in and year out, he plays 160 games out of 162. Look down at Marcus Semien. Marcus Semien, since like the late 2010s, even when he was with the Oakland Athletics, has led the league in at-bats every season. He's just ever presently available and hitting the leadoff spot. Obviously, he has that that potential to hit 40 plus home runs like he's done before. But just the whole point of like, if you're going to get an elite player at the top of the draft, I think that you absolutely need to get someone who is is not an injury risk. They're healthy all year long, so they can be contributing towards your team all year long. So again, we're down to the 40 and actually into the 50s. Wander Franco has dropped a lot. So this is a player who it's very rare that we ever see 80 ranks for anything. So if you know anything about scouting grades with players, the scouting grades is as minor leaguers are coming up through the system before they make it to the major leagues. The MLB Pipeline 100 kind of tracks this, but every minor league player has a scouting rating between 0 and 80 points, a 0 to 80 scale. 80 is perfect. 80 is kind of like a generational, talent. Number one of their class by far, probably the best talent at this specific, grade or this specific grade of this. 80 is just a perfect score. So contact, power, sprint speed, arm strength, and fielding are the 5 tools. When they say a 5-tool player, that means that you have a player that's essentially like a 70 or 60 or 70 above at all 5 tools. That would be a 5-tool player. There's once in a generation 5-tool player, and that'd be like a Mike Trout is almost perfect at everything. Well, he's already gone. But like I said before, Wander Franco, who dropped a ton, if he drops a ton in your draft, he hasn't been healthy for a whole season, which is kind of why he just dropped a ton there. But Wander Franco had an 80 overall contact rating, and the fact that Wander Franco is very much a very, very young person. He's 22 or 23 years old, hitting the 2 or 3 hole in Tampa Bay, is expected to play every single day. He has the contact. Putting the power on is just a matter of getting enough calories throughout the year, to put that weight on kind of as he goes through things. So let's transition to what we're going to do in the drafts. This you think about like, oh, I was super busy and now I heard this ding going on. Oh shit, it's my pick. Well, going to the 68 hole and seeing that these players are available, scrolling down and seeing a Darton Varsho is the next person, catcher who's going to get a ton of at-bats. He'll probably hit 30 home runs. This is kind of a little bit of a dead zone, but the person that I talked to before said that she really wanted to come away with a solid relief pitcher, and I don't know. I'm cutting it close here, fellers. Carlos Rodon is just such a great value at this point in the draft, and things are going like, pretty slower, but available. So Carlos Rodon at 75, top 10 pitcher rather, at that position is just that's a really, really good value as my third pitcher slot, knowing that she's going to slot him into her IL, which obviously you want to make sure that you check to see how many IL spots you have, and you would go to what I should do is just show you how to do it. If I was going to check my league settings, I would go to settings here, click on league settings, and I would scroll down to see that my total bench, I have 6 bench spots, and then I have 4 IL spots. So I'm drafting with that in mind. I'm going through who's available. I see that Blake Snell, JT Realmuto, Randy Rosarena is available. Love Randy. She specifically asked me and told me that she wanted me to get an elite, very, very good relief pitchers. And I think there are a lot of relief pitchers, but just given the fact that she asked specifically for one, and I'm not going to come up again for a really long time, I'm going to go ahead and grab who I think is going to be one of the best relief pitchers, closers of the year. It's going to be Ryan Helsley. And that's a little bit of a stretch, but just given that I'm drafting for someone else and they seem to be actually like flying off the board like pretty quickly, I'm going to happily take Ryan Helsley with this pick and get her a relief pitcher. And really, like, if you're playing in a standard league that has 9 pitchers, 3 bench spots, if you're limited to 12 starts, and this is where you would see that as well, is going to this league setting. If it goes down, you're going to scoring. Actually, in my league, it says that I only have 10 games started. This is the amount that I'm allowed to have per week before it sort of blocks out all my pitching stats. You want to make sure. Most of the time, it's 12. This league's weird. They mess with all the stats for whatever reason. But if you have 12 games started, 9 pitching slots, 3 bench slots, you generally want 3 really quality relief pitchers, and there are a lot of them. Even towards the end of the draft. So that's going to be the last relief pitcher that I take for a while, given that I think one of the best ones in the league is going to be AJ Minter. AJ Minter led the league in holds this past year. And specifically, if you get points for holds, this is an even more attractive look. But Minter's been with the Braves his entire career. He's 29 years old. This past season had a 2.06 ERA. And as you can see, 24 more strikeouts than he had innings pitched. This is a great candidate. 0.91 whip. Really, really good player. The only thing is that they recently traded for Raisel Iglesias, who is currently out. The thing is, like, they traded for Raisel Iglesias right after he signed an extension this past year and took Raisel and most of the money in that contract from the Los Angeles Angels over to the Braves, and they let Kenley Jansen walk. So the thought is always big name, was the setup guy for the end of the season and playoffs for them last year. Oh, he's just going to slot into the closer spot. Well, my thought process and kind of human interactions tell me that Raisel Iglesias is not the pitcher that AJ Minter is. If we look at 62 strikeouts and only 16 more or 62 innings pitched and only 16 more strikeouts per innings pitched. So he's behind AJ there. And also a 2.47 ERA is great, but it's not a 2.06 ERA. That's pretty elite. So given that like the franchise to Horacio Iglesias, yes, they're paying plenty of money for him. But when it comes down to the, to everything, AJ Minter has been the better pitcher, and you'd like to think that they're going to reward, the guy that, has been there for his entire career and has been waiting for this opportunity, since they've had a couple big name, Will Smiths of the world and these big name relief pitchers kind of come through. So he's for sure earned his turn. But yeah, I'm not going to get any more relief pitchers for a little while, given that there's a lot of value backloaded, even though people seem to be stretching for relief pitchers early. I got one that I really like. So go back to all players. And again, start make sure that you're keeping up with kind of what's happening. Obviously, it's kind of harder for me to do that because I'm trying to speak, talk, and draft at the same time. But again, just making sure that this is the whole value of this sheet. Obviously, if you would like to use the link is below. If you would like to utilize this draft sheet, it's the green 2023 ESPN Fantasy Baseball cheat sheet tab within within the sheet. If you log into this, you should be able to just copy and paste the whole thing over into your own sheet, whether it be like another Google sheet or an Excel, and you can edit things how you like. If you absolutely love Dansby Swanson, he had a really, really good year this last season, and you think that this production is going to stay the same as he moves to, from the Atlanta Braves to the Chicago Cubs, and you say, Austin, I don't agree with you. I think that Dansby Swanson is going to be an absolute great player, green, bold him, whatever. Then you should, you can bring this over into your own sheet. You can make sure that you highlight them accordingly and, do things that make you happy. I want to make sure that you guys are walking away with players that you're really proud of, because that's really what's most important at the end of the day. So we kind of wish that this was okay. All right, so just to run down before we kind of close this over here. I have loaded up all of my queued players that I'm really interested in. So next time that it comes to my turn, I'm pretty ready. I'm also going to look at my roster. Freddie Freeman so far, Austin Riley, third base, Bobby Witt Jr., shortstop, also has third base eligibility. So that's important to remember. I wish that you could, if it got to a point in the draft where you needed a third baseman or it's first base, third base slot, it was like one of your last picks, you hadn't filled it, but there was a really good shortstop or second base eligible guy, that was available. I wish that you could in real time just forcibly move Bobby Witt Jr. to that third base slot so that you could add the available, shortstop that you wanted in his place. But the software technology is just not there. So keep scrolling and just sort of look into who's available. And I'm just going to start talking about guys. Nick Lodolo for the Cincinnati Reds this past season. With the Reds, you couldn't really ask for much more out of him other than just to be healthy. So given that he plays in the second most home run friendly ballpark as a Cincinnati Red, had 30 more strikeouts than innings pitched. You always want to make sure that ratio, you always want to make sure you have more strikeouts than innings pitched, and then sort of judge them based on their ERA and whip, and everything else we kind of want to ignore because the wins and losses are subjective. The pitchers aren't hitting, so they can't really control their destiny in that regard. But if we look at the ERA, obviously we want to make sure that we have an ERA that is below 4. Anything below 4 is acceptable, but anything in the mid 3s is pretty darn good. So the next available guy that I have highlighted is Blake Snell. Blake Snell, sneaky valuable. If we look at his innings pitched last season, 128 innings pitched, 40 plus more strikeouts than innings pitched, only 128 innings. So you can see how if he got up to 150, which they're projecting 180 innings pitched, he is their opening day pitcher. Had a really, really good year last year. Is going to have tons of run support. I think that's a really solid pick at this spot. Luis Garcia, he's kind of even. He always has just about the same innings pitched as strikeouts, and with a mid ERA. So I'm just looking at kind of like, for the value of what's here right now in front of me. I have Eloy Jimenez down there highlighted, but knowing how many how important pitchers are, and that I've already drafted her, Carlos Rodon, who's going to go to the IL to start the year. I'm just going to make sure that she never has to scalp the free agent pile really this season, knowing that again she's going to have 25 players to draft. There are 10 people in her league. That's 250 players off of the top. Past the 250, there are actually a decent amount of pitchers that I like. If you go over here, this is a good example or a good time to run through this part of the spreadsheet. On this part of the fantasy baseball spreadsheet, again, it shows like per round. So 141 through 160, 161, whatever. Past the 250, kind of what I just talked about, there are only 4 pitchers that I really, really like, given their value in that point in the draft. So, just making sure that you're getting enough starting pitching kind of as you go, and piecing things along as you see it. So I already grabbed Ryan Helsley. That's great. I'm not going to get another pick for a while, so I really want to sniff on this and make sure that I'm making a decision that I love. Taylor Ward's down at number 111. I like Felix Bautista with the Baltimore Orioles. They're only going to win close games. But Taylor Ward was the number 2 most productive hitter in all of baseball when he was healthy last season. He just kind of ran into a wall, had a concussion and a shoulder issue. With the players available, I think that the highest ceiling kind of looking like right in front of me, like Lance Lynn's a high floor. It's a guy that's going to be, he kind of started out the season hurt last year and was kind of a little inconsistent, but I'd consider more unlucky than inconsistent given how many games I watched. Or a really high ceiling guy like Joe Musgrove, but given that I'm already giving her a player that is hurt, I'm going to skip on Joe Musgrove this time to make sure that I really get her a really quality outfielder, given that she has to fill 5 outfield slots. Usually the standard drafts, there's only 3 outfield slots. Like if you think about some of these drafts that are only first base, second base, third base, shortstop, outfield, and then 1 utility spot, how many less players, how many less people, this is all the words are starting to confuse and merge together. How many less players are actually getting drafted? You can kind of imagine how I think I missed my screen. I know that here I am. I know that I'm recording somewhere. I just lost it in the mass. Okay. So I'm still recording. That's just great. Anyways, if we want to look at these rosters are huge. So making sure that in my other videos, I am generally grabbing outfielders a lot later. So in a lot of cases, I'm not grabbing an outfielder until 120 plus, because I think Castellanos is a really, really solid player. If I go down even further, I think that Starling Marte and Teoscar Hernandez, those values are really, really good given that part of the draft. Jazz Chisholm Jr. is a player that I have to walk away with. You see this cyan color over here. So making on Jasm, he's ranked as a second, or he's eligible at second base now, but he's going to play every day in center field. So Tristan McKenzie's actually out for the first 8 weeks of the season. So I'm going to adjust this sucker while we're here just to make sure you guys are up to date on stuff. He's going to be out again for around 8 weeks. So Tristan McKenzie is a guy who went 191 innings last year with even strikeouts and low ERA. It's a good player. But you can see Hunter Renfroe outfield, Adolis Garcia, top 10 outfielder last year, down to 181. So I have been passing on outfield, but given that I have to take 5 of them, you want to make sure that you're just getting really good quality as you're moving through. And also I'm getting to the pick 100 is right now. I talked about before at all the way down at 158 is Jazz Chisholm Jr. I think that he's an MVP candidate at a player that at a position that's really, really low. So I want to make sure that I'm kind of always keeping in the back of my head that I need to probably reach for him around the 120, 130 range. Last night, in my a couple nights ago in my draft. I ended up just taking him at like around this round, and I think he would have survived a little longer. But given that if this isn't my draft, I'm trying to help somebody else. I'm just going to make sure that I'm walking away with higher quality people, higher ranked people at the time, just to make sure that, again, like, she doesn't see that I like was just super flimsy, not flimsy, but like I wasn't gambling with her picks per se. So going to all players, going to, again, kind of look over what's going on. Jose Altuve is hurt. No interest in him. And he cheats. Joe Ryan was the ace for Minnesota last year. They gave the opening day start already to Sonny Gray, which is someone who they traded for. I guess Sonny Gray is just, being a Reds fan, yes, he is a good, really good quality clubhouse guy, but just the fact that, like, Joe Ryan had it last season, I'm surprised that they didn't give it to him, give him the nod again this year. So I come up at the number 108 slot. This is a really good time for me to sort of, transition and kind of figure out like what is available to me right now. It's a good spot too to see kind of like if there are any trends that I've missed so far. It doesn't look like anything too out of the wild is happening, but scrolling down and just, again, like getting a kind of a lay of the land. I forgot to highlight Gunnar Henderson, and I won't Gunnar, but Ketel Marte, if he's back to anywhere what he was like a couple of years ago. He had a heel problem all last year. He played hurt through that injury all season long. So I'd like to think that he's going to have a pretty solid bounce back opportunity. Jeffrey Springs, really, really good player this past year, 2.46 ERA with, 11 more strikeouts than innings pitched. He came out of the bullpen to begin last year. That's why he has a relief pitcher tag still attached to him. But, that 1.07 whip, 2.46 ERA is almost elite. So given that starting pitcher is down that far, that's a huge value. Freddie Peralta, even through only 78 innings pitched this past year, still managed to get 8 more strikeouts than innings pitched. So I'm going to go up and look at. There's a lot of really good quality at the starting pitcher position. So if I look at Brady Singer, who seems to be kind of flying under the radar in a lot of drafts. Brady Singer at number 91 is expected to go 180 innings pitched, really let loose. That 3.23 ERA this past season is pretty elite. And given that he had just under the strikeout ratio that we want, that's attractive. Also looking at at Hunter Green down here. Hunter Green only 125 innings, had almost 60 more strikeouts. They had innings pitched. His ERA was really, really bad. He gave up a lot of home runs. It's really kind of like problem solving in real time. Who we want, Nick Lodolo. Brady Singer, I think, is going to have a little more run support. Brady Singer, again, is someone who's going to get unleashed. Had a really low ERA this past year. He's not going to get as many wins. The offense is still a little struggling, but the AL Central is just not very good. He's going to be, he essentially is the ace of that roster. They just gave Zach Greinke the nod for opening day, just to do it because he's been there for a long time and they're just looking for a leader. So if I look at kind of the next pick that's coming up, Joe Ryan is still available. If I wanted to go the pitching route, Jeff Springs maybe would make it back to me if I waited on him. And then I really need to come away with 158 Jazz Chisholm. And I don't have any second baseman, let alone like a second base and shortstop. So I got to get 2 second basemen. I currently don't hate what's coming up my way. I just know that Jazz is the highest ceiling, guy that we have available. And I really would rather come away with Brandon Lowe than any of the other guys here. So I might take a Brandon Lowe, given that he's got that proved 40 home run, capabilities. He was just hurt all of last season. So looking at who's available, Joe Ryan, who I love, is going to be plenty good again. Lucas Giolito, even though he had a 4 not horrible ERA this past season, so had 2 plus strikeouts, but not really worth the risk right here. So I'm going to go down to Brandon Lowe, probably the 132 slot, and just be happy with that, given that, I think that he's going to do plenty well and not be available. You know what? It's all about quality over quantity, right? So I'm just going to stretch and grab Jazz, knowing that he has huge upside, and I'm really between Jazz and Brandon Lowe. Will he be there next time? If he wasn't there, okay. If he wasn't there next time, if someone reached to pick him, I would be really upset. And given that he got put on the cover of MLB The Show, I'm just going to grab him and just not even worry about it, knowing he's also outfield eligible. I'm giving her a more flexible roster than Brandon Lowe would have provided. So just slot in Jazz there. I say to people, this is when you need to pick them 30 picks, like 30 picks higher. But, given the fact that, again, Jazz was, an MVP candidate, was a number one player between shortstops and second baseman this past season when he got hurt. He was an all-star. This is just a guy that I can't really pass up on. A 254 average is all you could expect out of him. He's also going to move up in the batting order. He's going to hit between the he's going to hit the 3 spot. So if we go over to roster resource, actually this is Fangraphs, but if you go to type in Fangraphs and then you go to, which is not letting me scroll over. It just sucks. Okay. If you go to Fangraphs roster resource, this kind of gives you like one of the better sites with projections. They're really, really, let's say conservative with their projections. They kind of undershoot everybody. But if we go to the NL East and go to the Marlins, I can see that Jazz, now that they've acquired Luis Urias, is going to move actually down to the 2 or possibly even the 3 hole while stealing a bunch of bases this year because he's plenty fast enough to do so. What sucks is that Luis Urias is on base all the time, but he can't move. He's a turtle. He's not the turtle, but like he can't really like move out of Jazz's way when he wants to steal second base, or steal second base. If Luis Urias is already on the base paths, we're going to hope that he advanced over to third base and isn't like actively blocking Jazz. But anyways, we can't really project that. So we're just going to take the player who has the highest ceiling, which, they're by far and away their best player. And he should be healthy enough coming in this next season. He's got a minor issue that's kept him out of a couple spring training games, but he should be due and ready for the opening day, opening day. All right, so I feel like we're kind of losing value of this video. So I'll just start talking about, again, people that I see. Lance Lynn this past year, I just feel like a 280-pound man just isn't going to be like super reliable. ERA last year is right at 4. He had some horrible luck last season. I watched several of his games, and this is just a guy that like was putting like soft contact bloopers one after another. Innings pit or his pitch count ran up, and then just essentially got like yanked from the game. Those runs counted against him, and then got tagged with a loss on top of it. The ERA I think is going to be way better than 4 as it usually has been, but I would expect kind of around this 160 range compared to the what we wanted out of him in years past, which is around 180 plus. So I'm gonna pass on Lance Lynn just because, again, 36-year-old player who's 280 pounds. I just don't really trust him to stay healthy all season. I think that's fair. Joe Ryan's still there. I would absolutely love to walk away with Joe Ryan if he's still available. That would be an incredible pick at the the 128 spot. Lucas Giolito, he has a lot of buzz around Lucas Giolito always because he's such a young guy. He was the ace. He might still be the ace. He might be the opening day starter for the Chicago White Sox last year. Had a really, really bad year, just about a 5 ERA. Has always had a lot of strikeouts, but there's actually only 1 year that he's been elite. So he actually only had like a 3.2 ERA a couple of years ago with around like 250 strikeouts. So the strikeouts were wild, but he's only done it once. So like that's not a player that's ever been like super consistent. Same thing with Jose Barrios. Like he has a couple really consistent years and then falls off of the face of the earth. Tyler Mahle, when he's healthy, is great, but his ERA is always closer to 4 with a ton of strikeouts. So it's like if his ERA is not keeping people off of base, he really has to rely on those strikeouts more than he'd ever want to. So I'm passing on Tyler Mahle and being really, really excited about Joe Ryan being available. Salvador, who just went. Nick Lodolo finally got drafted. So I'm just going to take a quick scan to see like who's available and who's around. Knowing that Joe Ryan here at 114, I love probably with the next pick at the 133 slot. I'll stretch a tiny bit for Jeffrey Springs, just knowing that, that 2.46 ERA and plus strikeouts is a really, really good deal. Jordan Walker's a player I want to make sure that I walk away with, but I can probably wait one round given that like not a ton of people. There's more people that know who he is now that he's had a monster spring, but he's still projected to kind of split time, but I think he's going to be a full-time player. So Joe Ryan, starting pitcher, is so important because like any of these guys can have a bad day at the office and get you like -1 points if you get nailed for strikeouts, if strikeouts like count against you for -1 points. But this player in Joe Ryan is just super consistent, really, really good control guy. You want to minimize the risks at pitcher. If you have guys that can absolutely get blown up, that's possible -20 points against you. So having really consistent, reliable pitching, I would say is very, very important to sustainable success. So going down again and talking about Jeffrey Springs, I actually had Rasmussen highlighted as well, who's before him. And Rasmussen also had a really good ERA, not as good, but a 2.84 ERA, 146 innings pitched, but 20 strikeouts less. He started out the year in the starting rotation, which means he got more innings pitched, but I think that Jeffrey Springs is going to be right with him in regards to kind of getting as much as he can take in regards to innings pitched. So I'm going to take Jeffrey Springs and be super happy about that. Freddie Peralta, also another really good player for when he's been healthy, but given his health concerns, and Jeffrey Springs is a 30-year-old guy, kind of figure like once these guys get to 30, less injury prone. Jeffrey Springs, really, really happy to walk away with that player and his relief pitcher eligibility. If you have to have people plugged in to that relief pitcher spot, or if you have a relief pitcher spot specifically, again, that's a pretty solid value given that at this point in the draft. Like the fact that Jeffrey Springs is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, my number 8 pitcher overall, not including, Ryan Helsley, who will always say that at relief. Like I couldn't be really happier about this roster so far. Pitcher heavy for sure, but there's just a ton of outfield value later. And given that, like, I'm going to go after Jordan Walker this next turn with a couple solid outfielders, even still sitting here, I think I'm really, really set up for success. Tristan McKenzie, really, really consistent pitcher. I wish that he'd gain like 30 pounds. I've been saying that for a couple of years. So now it's probably he'll only needs to gain like 5 more pounds. He's probably, he's 6'4". Now he's probably, 200 and let's say 15 pounds. I'd like him to be at 220 just to make sure that he's getting as much power output that you could possibly ask for out of that position. But you're just strong and able per se. But, Jordan Walker is projected to, I think he's not projected to be the 2-hole, but I think that in this roster with St. Louis, that just makes the most sense. So if we go to St. Louis and roster resource, they currently now have Jordan Walker as in the starting lineup on opening day, which is great. That makes a lot of sense. They have him all the way down the 8th spot, and maybe he'll stay at the 8th spot, but like his overall, production and high ceiling, he absolutely screams 2-hole hitter. And that's not a hit to Lars Nootbaar. It's more of a hit to Brendan Donovan. Brendan Donovan only hit it being a 260 guy. Walker will out hit Brandon Donovan in every single category. Brandon Donovan's going to be kind of like a super utility guy. And, the leadoff spot's going to be between Tommy Edman and Lars Nootbaar with Jordan Walker hitting in front of Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado. And then Tyler O'Neill would take that 6th spot. But like St. Louis Cardinals have a lot to look forward to. They're going to try to win, the World Series this year. every team tries to win, but like they have a really, really good shot of winning the World Series. This year is especially if Jack Flaherty's to full health. They've got a really good, really, really, really solid bullpen. They just have to kind of click on all. They're able to click. They're posting Jordan Walker to the opening day roster for a reason. They're kind of they're skipping out on his extra year of arbitration, knowing that they have a lot to look forward to. So, looking at the players that are currently on the board, people are stretching. So, this isn't as helpful as it was before, because though Drew Rasmussen at 133 is available, we look down at some of these players that are further down the draft. Teoscar Hernandez at 150 was gone, right? So, we like Starling Marte. Double groin surgery and him being at his age isn't great, but like, boy, is he just one of the more consistent guys, to play baseball. Even like only 466, less than 500 at bats, 15 home runs, 18 stolen bases at a 292 average. Such a really, really solid player. And, you would be happy to walk away with that, that floor level of talent. But now that it's to my pick, though, Drew Rasmussen, Freddie Peralta, guys that I really believe in, I think they're going to be good. The fact that Jordan Walker's jumped from 208, the 208 spot being from unranked to 208, now to 167. And for your guys kind of anticipating your draft for the next couple of days, if he rises up anymore, I just think this is a really, really important guy at a position that's pretty scarce, third baseman. I really hated last year. It's a little deeper this year, but if we look at the guys below Jordan Walker, there's no one besides Josh Jung who has, the outlook that he does. So I'm going to take him before I, waste any more time. But also just knowing that he's going to play right field every day is what he is immediately slots in as their best defensive outfielder, especially now that Harrison Bader's gone. He throws his pitches in from the outfield. He throws these in at 99.5 miles per hour is his average, throwing speed into the infield to his cutoff men. So again, just knowing that Jordan Walker is going to be an absolute killer. This is, a pretty easy selection. So if I go to check in on, I want to see how many IL spots she has, because you can't really let Tyler Glasnow sit there for too awful long. If I go to her home screen, if I go to her team, this is probably stressing you guys out. 45 seconds, that's enough. If I go to her settings and I go to IL slots, I only know that I have 3 IL slots. So knowing that so far in my draft, I have picked, Soto's going to be ready for opening day, so we won't consider that. Josh Chisholm's got a little bit of a bump up. Rodon is currently hurt. But, if Tyler Glasnow survives one more round of picks, I'm going to probably have to nab him given his overall ability. Really like Miguel Vargas down here. He's going to play every day at second base for the Los Angeles Dodgers. He's currently ranked or eligible at first base, but given that he's going to be the everyday second baseman, we can already sort of mentally slot, even though he's taking up that utility spot right now, but we can mentally say after 10 games, he can be slotted in to this second base shortstop role. And I've now filled that kind of that responsibility. It's going to force me to take someone at the end, but knowing that I am going to probably come away with my very, very last pick, come away with a guy like Trevor Story, who I'm just going to slot to my IL and sort of forget about anyways. We're just looking to maximize volume with our opportunities here. So split these screens again and talk about the next set of players. So again, Tyler Glasnow, I should go to his they already rank him as essentially hitting throwing 40 more strikeouts and innings pitched. If we go to his complete stats, and if they want to give us the stats by year, 2020, he threw or 2021, he threw, where is his innings pitched? 2021, 88 innings pitched and 123 strikeouts. Huge ratio. 2020, 57 strikeouts, 57 innings pitched, 91 strikeouts. Just a super duper high ceiling guy. His ERA is kind of all over the place, but as long as his ERA is like a manageable, a strikeout ratio is so good that it's kind of hard to compete with. So if Glasnow is still there with my next pick, I would consider it given what the situation is at hand. So my starting pitchers are looking really, really good. And also notice or remember that I need 2 more relief pitchers. So I can only take 2 more starting pitchers. So if I started to look through the list of players, Tony Gonsolin's he's injured right now. Not more valuable than the guys kind of to come. Looking at Kyle Wright's going to miss the first turn through the lineup. He's going to be maybe available towards the middle of April, if not like the very end of April. It's a really quality pick down at 198. Jesus Luzardo, I'd love to come away with Jesus Luzardo. This past season, 3.32 ERA with 20 more strikeouts than he's pitched. So I have a lot of faith in him. Coming down, I have to come away with William Contreras. So making sure that William Contreras, who had the second most total bases per hit this past season with the Braves, he got an all-star nod as a backup catcher this past season, mostly because every time that he came up, he averaged 2.2 total bases per hit. So per hit, he was averaging over a double. And that's super valuable. I have an outfielder, Oscar Gonzalez, that I really love. So knowing that I have an outfield slot to hit full, there's just a lot of starting pitchers to come. Bryce Harper is going to be out for maybe the first 2 months of the season, but knowing that I have 3 AL slots to slot for her, I'll take that into consideration. Coming down at the 250 hole. And again, there's just so many starting pitchers that, next time that there's an opportunity to draft, in my next turn, I'm just going to sort of consciously say to myself, what's available? What do I need? I need 3 outfielders. I need my catcher, and I need a second base shortstop slot. I mentioned before that I'd like to take Trevor Story as my very last pick to just sort of stash as an IL slot, but because I already have an IL slot and Carlos Rodon, I'm going to slot him to the IL and then probably pick up Trevor Story, slot him in the IL, and then pick up that actual player that I replace. But you have to do that in order to make sure that you don't double up on things. But Jeremy Pena down at 195 has a really, really big upside, given that he's going to be hitting between the 1 and the 2 hole for sure to begin the year. I know that I need outfielders. I know that I need a shortstop, second base slot, but there's a lot of outfielders to come, and there's not many shortstop, second basemen that I like. So I'm going to take Jeremy Pena and be pretty happy about that. So starting to fill things in here. Jeremy Pena in that second base shortstop slot, he's going to play every single day. And he hit 25 home runs, I think, from this past year. He was the World Series MVP, he had 22 home runs this last year at a 250 average of his rookie season across 521 at bats. It's really, really, really good for a rookie. He's only going to get better than that. When you see a player like Carlos Correa, who's so highly touted, leave a competing franchise, that's a really good sign to say and know that there's players that are filling behind them that are going to be very, very good. So similarly, last year, Justin Verlander won the AL Cy Young with the Houston Astros, and obviously he was going to cost a lot of money, but they happily let him walk because they know that Christian Javier, Luis Garcia, and Framber Valdez, who has kind of been that trio has been there, is really going to pick up the slack and do a lot of good this this upcoming season. Tyler Mahle at 112 is still sitting there. He had a really, really good year with the Reds before this past season. But again, I'm going to talk about just the overall kind of ceiling on a couple of these outfielders I like. 184 and 189, Tyler O'Neill and Jake McCarthy. Going down to the 180s here. Jake McCarthy this past season, in only 321 at bats, stole 23 bases at a 283 average. That's a really, really good, very, very good clip at around a 30 home run pace. He had a really, really good year. That he's going to be the 3-hole hitter for Arizona, who I think are going to be sneaky good. And then Tyler O'Neill at the 189 slot. They're kind of talking about him like possibly losing playing time, but there's no chance because last season he's going to hit around a 30 home run clip, but not sure where he's going to be at in the lineup. Given how important stolen bases are going to be this year, I'm going to take Jake McCarthy, knowing that he's going to be hitting the primetime spot in this Arizona lineup. If we look at the Arizona lineup and be happy and confident that he's going to get all the volume necessary to be fantasy relevant. So he is the 3-hole behind the fastest player in Major League Baseball, Corbin Carroll, who has 100th percentile sprint speed. Ketel Marte, who was very much an all-star Silver Slugger eligible caliber player in both 2019 or 2018 and in 2018 and 2019, but it's sort of like just battle through injuries. When he is available, he always hits for a high average. We know that the power is there. Jake McCarthy is kind of just like being given the keys, hitting that primetime 3-hole slot, and with the ability to steal bases. The Arizona Diamondbacks steal a lot of bases every single year. Like I just think that the writing's on the wall. Jake McCarthy is going to be a really good slot. Really good pick. If we go to National League, St. Louis Cardinals, and go down and look at the outlook for Tyler O'Neill, 6th spot. I think he's going to be more of the 5 because, he's not going to hit behind Wilson Contreras, who's a newcomer from the Chicago Cubs and is not going to play every single day. And he's certainly not going to play in that DH slot anymore as much as he was with the Cubs. So to get those constant, those very, very, those reps over and over and over again, they're going to make sure that Tyler O'Neill gets his at bats in that 5-hole. And given that he's a year removed from having a 34 home run season, this is the guy who will fill that 5 spot. So if he's still there when we get back up, we'll consider him. But we really have to make sure that we're honing in on the players that we absolutely love. So 214 is the William Contreras slot, and we're getting really close to this next turn. Regardless of who is available, on the board, I really have to make sure that I walk away with William Contreras, and I really, really love Oscar Gonzalez. So making sure that I come away with those players are important. So if we go down to 214, William Contreras, highlighted in cyan, just can't hardly beat this player. What's great about William Contreras is that I think that because he has such a high ceiling with his ability as a hitter, and the NL teams have the DH now and have had them for a couple of seasons now, I really think that William Contreras is going to really hit hitting that DH spot on his off days. So if we look at the Milwaukee roster, you can see why Fangraphs is a good little tool here. If we go to Milwaukee's roster, they just don't have a ton going for them. They're kind of a home run or nothing team, with Christian Yelich kind of like transitioning more to a contact on base hitter. They really are just leaning into, we want home runs. No one's going to get on base in general because it's either going to be a strikeout or a home run. William Contreras is already slotted to be that number 4-hole hitter. Jesse Winker is not the best outfielder, but he is certainly just as good of a defensive option, if not better, than some of these guys that are currently supposed to hit between right field and center field. Jesse Winker can't play center field, but he has played plenty left field and certainly play right field. So on William Contreras, all of that to say, on William Contreras' off days from catching, I do see him being the DH and staying in that 4-hole. So there's a lot of value there. And assuming that he is going to still be available, we're going to draft him in 1 pick at the 214 slot. And if you guys, for whatever reason, don't come away with William Contreras, or for whatever reason you miss out on everybody who will be available at the very, very end of your draft, almost certainly is Logan O'Hoppe down here with the LA Angels. Logan O'Hoppe is supposed to take as many. They only have him projected as taking 217 at bats, but he is the top prospect that they just drafted Brandon Marsh from. Matt drafted Brandon Marsh traded Brandon Marsh from the Phillies. Gosh, this is hard to talk. But he's going to get as many innings pitch as he really can take at that catcher position. So that means he's going to be in the lineup every single day with the players like Mike Trout, Shohei Ohtani, Anthony Rendon when he's healthy, and all these other guys that are Hunter Renfroe that are going to be smacking the balls around, getting to those relief pitchers early. I just think that Logan O'Hoppe's going to have plenty of opportunity to develop and not have a ton of pressure to produce early because there's so much help around him. So again, William Contreras, a ton of have him in every single league. I'm going to have him in every league. If he busts or if he gets hurt, that sucks. But know that Logan O'Hoppe down here is a really, really solid backup option who probably will not get drafted. But that's great for us because he's available. So now that I'm really starting to fill in these, plug in these holes here, I am filled up besides 2 outfield slots and 4 pitching slots. So I mentioned before, kind of depending on what value is left, I'm either going to take Trevor Story with my very last pick, knowing that I can just slot him to the IL slot and then pick up, an available pitcher or whoever's available. So I need pitching and outfield. Oh, you know what? I'm playing with Indians fans, and I bet you that Oscar Gonzalez already got drafted. Already drafted, son of a gun. Well, that was one of my favorite players I really wanted to come away with, but knowing that he's not available anymore, that is too bad. But we look at the available outfielders. Mark Canha last year couldn't keep any sort of calories down. Had a really, really hard time eating and getting enough food in his system to succeed. So that's not something that you love to see. Also, she wanted me to come away with 3 closers, and I will absolutely do that. I got 2 more. The fact that Kyle Wright and Tyler Glasnow sitting there. Tyler Glasnow is just too much value to let sit. So we'll sit him in the IL slot and be okay with the consequences, given that he is a top 10 pitcher when he's actually healthy and going full blast. Between the people who are going to get slotted to the IL immediately, so far it's only Carlos Rodon and Tyler Glasnow. So only 2 of her slots are filled out of the 3, and with Jazz Chisholm Jr. being day-to-day is expected to play on opening day, we'll keep that empty because you don't want to draft your IL necessarily full. You want to draft it, with the opportunity just to slot in, but not necessarily just to overwhelmingly fill it. And, she wants 3 really solid relief pitchers. Clay Holmes should get every save opportunity this year with the Yankees. He this past season had a plus strikeouts with a solid ERA. It's just that he's going to be in the opportunity. He has an older manager who's going to throw them out. Every opportunity that he has, I think that this is a pretty solid pick to come away with. At the relief pitcher slot, Pete Fairbanks is actually one of the best, relief pitchers in all of baseball. It's just that the Rangers or the Rays are smarter than everyone. They're going to throw him against the best matchup, not necessarily just in the 9th inning. So, he'll probably get 21 saves. And if you get points for holds, take notice of that, because if holds are worth points to you, then obviously Pete Fairbanks is very, very useful. Almost 20 more strikeouts than innings pitched. He started out the year last year on the IL. So Alex Lange is 100%. He's in the 100th percentile in strikeouts with his curveball and his slider or his cutter, one of the two. One of those is the 99th percentile. His curveball is one of the best ever in baseball, being 100th percentile strikeout rating. So, given that, again, he's going to have 20 more innings pitched, or 20 more strikeouts than innings pitched with I'd consider a low 3s to, high 2s ERA. Tigers aren't going to win as many games as the other guys, but I think this is, a breakout candidate as well. Justin Steele this past year did really well in his rookie season, collecting, just under 120 innings pitched, had plus strikeouts and a low 3 ERA. I think the Steele is going to be very, very good. And then next, Eric Lauer finished this past year with a serviceable ERA, just under the requested, strikeouts per innings pitched, being 158 versus 157. But given how young he is at 26 years old, we can see the opportunity for that to improve. Garrett Whitlock this past year, if you need a relief pitcher eligible guy, Garrett Whitlock is a starter. He'll only be out for one turn through the rotation, but he had a really solid year this last year. Mid-threes ERA, 78 innings pitched, and 4 more strikeouts in innings pitched is pretty good numbers. To remind everybody, I need 2 outfielders. I need and then, relief pitchers essentially. So I'm looking at what is available. I am seeing that there's a lot of relief pitchers coming up, and I have not come away with enough outfield help to be super happy about that, given that's something, that I need to fill every day. Jazz is going to transition to the outfield, but knowing that I'm coming away with solid quality is important. If I go to see Jared Kelenic is coming up, I really like Jared Kelenic. Oswald Cabrera is coming up. I really like Oswald as well. And I talked about Mitch Haniger's hurt. Mark Canha is going to be back and healthy. I think that's a pretty solid everyday selection. And welcome to the team, Mark Canha. I need one more outfield slot, and I need pitching. 364 is where Jared Kelenic is at. I'm scrolling. Oscar Colas is going to be really good. He is going to be one of the everyday outfielders for Chicago White Sox, and he's like the 70th something ranked prospect in all of baseball. Has a really good spring, should play every single day. So Oscar Colas, I'd be happy to walk away with as well. Probably has a higher ceiling than Mark Canha does, but Mark Canha is going to guaranteed play every single day. I'm going to queue Jared Kelenic, knowing that that's essentially supposed to be a Silver Slugger MVP type talent, but has just completely fallen on his face to start his career. But there's a lot of faith that he'll turn things around. So Josh Jung, have a lot of faith in, but I just don't have anywhere to put him right now. Maybe he's available in 10 days when Jordan Walker gets his outfield eligibility. I can slot in Jordan Walker and add a Josh Jung. But, where the value is right now and who's available, between like a Kopech and a Brandon Drury, who's eligible at 3 different positions, I just want to come away with really, really solid, really, really quality pitching at this point. So Steele is going to do very well, obviously, because I talked about Michael Kopech having just a serviceable ERA, performed the strikeouts per innings pitched, but it was a little bit of bad luck as well this past season. So if we're going to look at the just overall outlook of who's available, what do I want out of a position, Justin Steele, really solid player, happy to walk away with Justin Steele. And John Gray was on the board, and John Gray had pretty solid stats this last year, but the ERA is just kind of too high given that, in his track record and being with Texas, not super excited about that player. Lance McCullers, when he's healthy, is absolutely lights out. Only 47 innings pitched this past year, had plus strikeouts, and a 2.27 ERA. That is elite category, sort of stuff. But he's not supposed to be back this season for over a month. So, and he's sort of always hurt. So it's the player that always have to be very, very cautious with. So outfield, I need one more outfielder. I'm happy really to take Jared Kelenic or Logan O'Hoppe at this point. Not Logan O'Hoppe, Jared Kelenic or Oswaldo Cabrera, who plays essentially every position for the New York Yankees and is going to play that utility role. But Oswaldo Cabrera will be starting in the outfield every day, especially as Harrison Bader is hurt. Oswaldo Cabrera was the number 5 hole hitter going into most of this playoff game. So that's a guy that is going to play every day, at least to start. And if he plays good enough, he'll probably slot, given that, we know who Aaron Hicks is at 33 years old. They're going to need to, if they're going to actually compete in the AL East, they need to, get what they can get the most out of their younger guys. Really, relief pitchers. I'm going to grab AJ Minter. Make sure I come away with AJ Minter at 353. Johan Duran is the best talent that Minnesota has in their bullpen this past season. A 1.86 ERA is elite across 67 innings pitched, 89 strikeouts. This player is awesome. But it's going to be between him and Jorge Lopez. But at the same time, Jorge Lopez was traded for at the deadline last year. They have more allegiance to Johan, given that this is a player they drafted, knowing that Rodon is getting slotted and Glasnow is getting slotted. So let's say that we've got two slots available. We want to get really solid pitching and even more another solid relief pitcher. So let's go to pitchers just to scan to make sure that I'm not missing anyone. Edward Cabrera just made the Major League roster. He had a really good year this past year. But going with what I know, Eric Lauer, solid player. Take him as a starting pitcher. Be happy to have him in a weak NL Central division with a pretty solid ERA and about even strikeouts. I need a relief pitcher and an outfielder. And let's just, to avoid any questions, AJ Minter we will take as our available closer, and if he gets bumped, then there should be enough for her to scrape off of the bottom in value. So AJ Minter selected. Okay, so now I've got one more outfield slot, and I know that Oscar Colas is going to play every day, and the outfield already projected to get 17 home runs and way less than like 339 at bats. So if we go do the math here on how to project outfield production, we'll go the 17 divided by 339 times 555, which is like the normal amount of like regular at bats a player would get across the whole season. If they play the whole season, that'd be around a 28 home run pace, which is really, really good. Jared Kelenic should play every single day. It's projected to get a similar amount of home runs, but it's just never ever hit for average of kind of what you would want to see out of a player. So the 220 even is like really, really low given how he's hitting a solid 405 throughout the spring. You don't want to weight a lot of opinions into, the spring stats, but Kelenic would be pretty solid at that Seattle spot. And I talked about Oswaldo Cabrera that's left. So let's just go to who is left and who is going to be playing every day. I think Riley Green's going to have a pretty decent season. He had 250 last year, only 5 home runs across a bunch of bats. I think that number will increase, but he should be hitting at the top of the lineup of the Tigers, who's still sort of limited in what they can do. But given how Tim Tebow at 503. What's going on here? Jake Fraley is going to be the 3-hole hitter for Cincinnati. It's a pretty solid selection this late in the draft, given that he's going to be hitting in the second most home run friendly ballpark of any of them in baseball. I can go down through here. Kyle Lewis at the 408 spot. It was the 2019 AL Rookie of the Year. Absolutely has 30 plus 40 home run potential if he can just play an entire season this past year even. He was available for a very short period of time, but when he is, he's great. So, of what is available to me, who's going to, play the most, who's not going to platoon. I think that, it's going to be between Colas and Kelenic. The great thing about what might be Oswaldo Cabrera is that, again, like I said before, he played across every infield position and outfield this past year. So a true everything but catcher and pitcher kind of player. He can slot in anywhere, but he's going to get most of his time in outfield to start the year. with expectations of maybe like giving up some at bats to Harrison Bader. But with this last outfield slot, drum roll please, I think that I'm going to go probably, let's say, Colas, because Kelenic has been so bad to start out his career, but was the number 2 prospect in baseball. Actually, was ahead of Julio Rodriguez when they were being graded as prospects. So go to Seattle. Go to Kelenic's expected to get the around the 7 hole essentially, and then if I go to the Chicago White Sox in a different league, Oscar Colas, the 8th spot essentially. So it's you're just going for health, availability, and ceiling. I think that Oscar Colas is a pretty solid player to walk away with, given what is available. Oscar Colas, take the player, and be happy about it, and just be done with this. So, boy, did I think that I drafted an all-star roster. I could not be happier about this roster. William Contreras, Freddie Freeman, Chisholm Jr., Austin Riley, Bobby Witt Jr., Jeremy Pena, Jordan Walker, Juan Soto, Taylor Ward, Jake McCarthy, Mark Canha, Oscar Colas, Miguel Vargas, who's going to be the everyday second baseman for the LA Dodgers, but currently has just a first base tag, Dylan Cease, Christian Javier, Carlos Rodon, Ryan Helsley, Blake Snell, Brady Singer, Joe Ryan, Jeffrey Springs, Tyler Glasnow, Justin Steele, Eric Lauer, and the current closer for the Atlanta Braves, AJ Minter. So that's the end of the show. Thank you for supporting me, and goodbye.